Today, we're looking at a black ink by Parker. It's Quink Black. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that you can skip around, but if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, if you're interested, you can follow me on Instagram, and if you're new here, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then inked up this Sailor My First pen with a medium fine nib, wrote with it for a day, and then took the notes for this video. For the first writing sample, I used Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. There are additional writing samples later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to make sure I keep my writing sample consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen. I'm going to call it spots of shading, which is something I don't care for. It's got dark spots and lighter spots, and a lot of this black is coming across as quite gray in the stub. Not something I care for. The extra fine is a little bit darker than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. It's a little bit darker. I say no shade hesitantly because there are letters coming across darker. Again, I like my blacks to be solid, dark black. No form of shading. The bottom of this Y, where it's lighter than the rest of the word, that shading, I don't like it. Not in black. 10 seconds to dry. Medium, darker than the extra fine. Performs much better than the extra fine. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, nice dark black all the way across, 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows that there's some color variation, and there was, which I don't care for. The medium shows none, and there was none. Tomoe River, no bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 stub has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer darker spots because this black is more of a gray at this point. Like the top of the K has a very black spot. Not something I like. The extra fine is a little bit darker. No feather spread, halo sheen, and yes, still some shading areas as in darker areas. Like the ICK in quick, the E in over, the B in brown, the H in the. I don't like it. 16 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine. Not as dark as I would like to see a black be. More like a dark gray. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 28 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, even though in the extra fine there was some. Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and yet still spots of shading. The K is darker, the P is darker, the K is darker, another K is darker, and I is darker. These are dark grays in a gray area in an ink called black. We see how this is going, right? It's not that this is a horrible black. Horrible for me. The extra fine is darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and yes, some spots of shading, like the K in quick, the H in the A in lazy, the backside of the right side of the G in dog. I don't like it. 12 seconds to dry. Medium, darker than the extra fine. No feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. Solid black, good black here with a nice wetter pen, thicker line, 21 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, and unfortunately we got it. The scrubby of the medium shows none, and we had none. I agree with Vita that there's a lot to be learned by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. What we see is this very nice blue working its way up, and then these sort of brown-orange
tones at the top. A lot of browns, a little bit of oranges poking through. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. Now that blue on the bottom is very gathered, very there, in that blue line, quite nice. It creeps its way up, much lighter. You start to see little bits of the brown and a lot of the orange at the top. But that blue looks like it might be a troublesome color.
Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before I test it.
Looking at the highlighter, I'm a little surprised about how this worked. I thought the Quinks were faster drying and a little bit more permanent, but maybe not. Both the H's have quite a bit of blowout and blurriness to them, which makes me worry about taking notes with it, quite frankly. Water's lifting all of the colors except the blue. The blue is very much still there. That blue that was showing up in the chromatography line, it is absolutely there and not moving with just water. We have the same problem when it comes to the pen flush. What we see is all of the other colors are being removed, but the blue is still very much there and on the paper. Now, 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it from the paper. No problem, only 30 seconds. Just make sure that if you use that, you immediately flush your pen with water to make sure that you don't rust any of the metal bits.
I test for viscosity or flow using a thing called a tilt test. I will link how I do that, the video of it, down below or up in the cards. I also then put it onto a standard distribution so it's more easily seen with all of the inks that I've tested. Now, for the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9.
Parker Quink's Black has a viscosity of 1.24, making this ridiculously wet. It is almost water. The white line at the number 1.0 is water. Water's my let's base it off of. And 1.24, oh my God, that's wet.
To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds.
Parker Quink Black has an average dry time of 17 seconds, making it not just normal, but average. And considering how insanely wet this ink is, having an average dry time is remarkable to me. I just wish I liked its color better. Instead of finding inks that look like Parker Quink's Black, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice turquoise, the Atramentis Mint Turquoise. The second writing sample is done on Franklin Christoph paper, and I only used the one paper because I found with the Quink inks, I was a little disappointed and didn't really want to write as much with it. So I really cut down what was done there. There was just a lot of disappointment on my part. I don't want to beat you up with a whole bunch of additional papers, but I did want to give you another paper that really highlights what's going on with this ink on what makes me so unsatisfied with it. So I pulled out Franklin Christoph paper. Now we get no bleeding and no ghosting. It's performing perfectly fine there. The 1.1 stub has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it shades. It's a black ink that shades. Now, I don't see a lot of people that say, man, I really like a nice shading black ink, but if you like shading black ink, please let me know in the comments because I don't run into many people that like that. We see the KER is darker than the PAR. The NK is darker than the QI. The K is darker than the first part of black. I just don't care for it. The extra fine is darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and yes, it offers shading. Like the T is lighter than the he, the QUI is lighter than the CK, the brown starts black and works its way gray for an ink called black. 5 seconds to dry. Now the medium is significantly darker than the extra fine. The medium, I like it. No feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, nice, dark, consistent black all the way across. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows us color variation, and unfortunately it was there. The medium shows none, and thankfully there was none. And that is all that I have for the writing samples.
So what do I think of Parker Quink Black? It's a perfectly acceptable black ink. It is not the black ink for me. I would prefer it to be just a little bit darker, but it is a very good black ink that's not too expensive. So what pen and nib gives the best writing experience with this ink? I found that Stubbs put shading down, which I don't care for with black inks. I want my blacks to be solid and there, no shading. Just make sure you use a wet pen if that's what you prefer. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.